Good afternoon, Ducks fans. Welcome back to another episode of QUACKAST. For today, we're going to talk about the projected line combinations that I expect the Ducks will be running out this season for the forward lines and our three defensive pairings and who our two goaltenders will be, and maybe a couple of rookie notes that I'll throw in as well for rookies that you might somehow see crack the roster for opening night, and maybe some rookies you'll see in the future later in the season. Sound good?
Nope.
Great. Let's get into this episode of QUACKAST. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for all the latest content. So the Ducks. I mentioned the free agents that we picked up in the offseason in our previous episode. Feel free to watch it. I'll leave a link in the description. So for the forward combination, so for the top line, which should be the line of your best players, your top line should look like this. Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, and Adam Henrique. So, obviously, we know how good Troy Terry was last year. He led our team. He scored 37 goals, which is a career high. Hopefully, he can build off of that season, and that wasn't a flash in the pan. Trevor Zegras, who Salty Ducks fan Matt believes was robbed of the Calder, which would be Rookie of the Year, losing it to Moritz Seider of the Red Wings. He had a 20-goal season last year. I believe he scored 21 or 22.
Missed it.
And then for veteran presence to kind of mentor these guys a little more, because he's still there, is Adam Henrique. Now, Henrique has struggled in his contract situation. It is a bit of a doozy. He's still under a pretty big contract that he signs. He left since we got him from the Devils in that trade many years ago for Sami Vatanen. Henrique actually had a fair season last year. He scored 42 points, 58 games. The second line will consist of two of our new forward acquisitions, Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano, and I believe that somebody like an Isaac Lundestrom could center the second line. Let's take a look at the stats of Lundestrom. 21-22 season, he scored 16 goals and 13 assists for 29 points in 80 games. So wasn't much of a goal scorer and point producer, but he was very smart with the puck, a very good defensive forward, and I think he will do well on the second line. The third and fourth line is where things are a little bit more open from the notes that I read from Coach Dallas Aikens and GM Pat Verbeek. So the third and fourth lines, we could see a lot of the regulars, but then again, there's a possibility, depending on how well some of the rookies do in camp, that they could crack the roster and slot themselves in those open spots. But on the third line for now, I would see definitely Jakob Silfverberg, Mason McTavish. You all remember that name from last year. He scored opening night versus the Winnipeg Jets, and he got another goal on Veterans Day when we played the Kraken, and then we had him sent down and he went to the OHL. So McTavish, Silfverberg, and I would currently leave that third spot on that line open for maybe a rookie who could get it. Maybe Max Jones goes on there, but I'm not sure. I have Max Jones actually going on the fourth line, and he probably will be taking the place of Sam Carrick because Carrick is injured, recovering from hip surgery, and we won't see him until November 1st. So Grant, Jones, and another guy, possibly one of the rookies, could take on the fourth line duties. So the other thing is, we have not named a captain for this season, which is actually pretty smart, because we always had this obviously when Getzlaf was still here, but now we're going to see how the locker room plays out, and maybe you'll see 4 A's on player jerseys to signify alternate captain. One of those that I know would get it is Jakob Silfverberg because he's one of the longer tenured Ducks. Let's talk about our defensive pairings. We can have 3 defensive pairings and 6 defensemen. Sometimes teams will dress 7. But the Current projections of defensemen. If you were to do this by the way these players shoot, being right-hand shot or left-hand shot, I would like to see it where you have a right and a left-hand shot. And if you do it like that, your defensive pairing should look like this. On the on the top defensive pairing, you should have Jamie Drysdale and Cam Fowler. The second pair, you should have each of the new acquisitions of John Klingberg and Dmitry Kulikov. And then on your third pairing should be Kevin Shattenkirk and Simon Benoit. Or if you wanted to keep Benoit in the minors and bring up Josh Mahura, that would work too, because Shattenkirk's a right-hand shot and both Benoit and Mahura are left-hand shots. Benoit is a big defenseman. He is really able to lay the body on players. You can kind of mix this up however you want with the defenseman, but the way I laid it out with if you were to project it by left-hand and right-hand shot with Drysdale Fowler, Klingberg, Kulikov, and Shattenkirk Benoit, that's a possibility. Or you could keep both of Benoit and Mahura down in the minors and keep Jorho Vakanainen on your third defensive pairing. I think he could play on both the second and third pairing defenseman. Vakanainen's a very good stay-at-home type of defenseman, if you know what I mean. Like, very defensive defenseman. And for the goalie tandem, it will be John Gibson and Anthony Stolarz. Now, last year, a lot of people were ripping on John Gibson, and I was one of them, as a matter of fact. I thought he was getting way too much playing time. There were a lot of games that he looked really bad in. 8-3 loss to the Blackhawks. And I had thought that Anthony Stolarz should have gotten more playing time. Gibson, in his contract, obviously it's a big situation. 8-year contract, about $6.5 million against the cap. If you get rid of John Gibson, you have even more money to play with, or you might have to eat the contract, but you throw off that amount of money from the roster and you might be able to go have more cap space to make other acquisitions in next year's free agency class. Stolarz, if Gibson's bad this year, expect him to get more playing time and the possible call-up of Lukas Dostal. He was one of our top goalie prospects. He played in 4 games last year with a 1-2 record. So those are my projections. If you think that I should have projected them a little differently, please leave them in the comments below. Remember to click like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. In the third episode, which will be our last off-season episode, we will discuss how we did in the off-season and what the finalized roster will look like. And I'll see you at that point of the off-season / preseason. But for now, have a good day, stay safe, go Ducks. I can't wait for the season to start. We're probably not going to make the playoffs, but hey, a man can dream. Go Ducks.